Hey everyone, welcome back to Unit 4, Day 5 Notes. Today we're going to solve for y and graph from a table. So, our goal today is students will be able to graph linear equations by solving for y and creating a table of values with 80% accuracy. Okay, so there are a few methods that can be used in graphing linear equations. One way is by using a calculator. So you're going to need your TI-84 calculators, graphing calculators to do this, so make sure you have those available. We're going to run through the steps first. So to graph on your calculator, step 1, you're going to convert the equation to slope-intercept form, right? That's y equals mx plus b. You want to solve for y and get y by itself. Step 2, press y equals in the top left of your calculator. Then you're going to enter the equation in the y1 equals section. Step 4, press second and then graph. And you want to choose points. Sorry, let me take a step back there. So after you press second and graph, you're going to see a table with all these coordinates. You're going to choose points around the y-intercept. And that y-intercept, remember, is when x equals 0. So you're going to go searching for that point. When x equals 0, you're going to choose points around it. And then step 5, you're going to press graph to see the graph and just see what it looks like. Make sure it matches the graph that you graphed. Okay, so even though that's going to be our focus, we are going to take some time to talk about and discuss, well, how do we enter these values into a table without the calculator as well, just so we are fully rounded on our knowledge on graphing lines using tables. So first one, it says graph linear equations by using a table. So the first thing we need to do is make sure it's in slope-intercept form. Make sure y is by itself. So y is by itself. And if we remember, we have that y equals mx plus b format. And we have the mx, but there's no plus b. So what we are looking to do is first form our table around our y-intercept, or where the x value is 0. So we want 0, and then whatever that number is for b, that's going to be entered in the y column. So we have a value of 0 for x, and since there is nothing over here, right, there's no y-intercept, then b just equals 0. So our y-intercept is 0, 0. So that's going to be the first point we plot on our graph. Okay, now we want to find points around the y-intercept. So we're going to go 2 x values smaller than 0, so -1, -2. And then we're going to go 2 x values bigger than 0, 1 and 2. Now, just so we can show what it looks like without using a calculator, we can go ahead and take a look and see our equation is y equals x. So whatever we plug in for x, for example, if we're choosing -1, what's our y value when x is -1? Well, y equals x. So when x is -1, y is also -1. So let's go ahead and try that with the next one. Y equals x, and we're replacing x with -2 this time. So y equals -2. Well, when x equals -2, y also equals -2. All right, let's try that with the next coordinate. Again, so we have the same equation, y equals x. This time we're plugging in 1 for x. Well, and when x is 1, y is also 1. And then maybe you see where we're going with this next one. When x equals 2, y is also 2. So there, we filled out our table. Now we can go ahead and graph this, but let's show what this looks like when we enter this information into our calculator. So we're going to follow those steps. It's already in slope-intercept form, so you need to press the y equals button. So I'm going to do this, you follow along. So we're press the y equals button in the top left. And then it says enter the equation into y1 equals. Well, that's this first line here. So we're going to go ahead and type in the equation. Well, y equals, and it is x. So we're done plugging it in. The next step is click second, and then graph. Graph is in the top right of your calculator, and you notice we have a table of values. What we are interested in looking for is right here. You see how I've highlighted where our x value is 0, it says our y value is 0. So all that work we just did, the calculator did for us. And we want values around our y-intercept, which is why we are selecting this as our middle point in our table when x equals 0. Then we go to see, oh, when x equals -1, y equals -1. When x equals -2, y equals -2. When x equals 1, y is 1. And when x is 2, y is 2. Which makes sense because our equation is y equals x. So they equal each other. So now just to get a look and see what is our graph supposed to look like, we click that graph button again without hitting second before, and it shows you this is what the graph looks like. It just goes up from bottom left to top right. It's a positive slope because it's heading up to the right. And so now we are just going to go ahead and plot these points and graph it. So I have 0, 0, then -1, -1, -2, -2, +1, +1, +2, +2. Take a straight edge, a ruler, or your student ID works just fine. You're going to go ahead, put the ruler down, and graph. And there is our graph. It matches exactly what we had in the calculator. So then we have this question. What is the relationship between x and y values? Well, in this case, the x and y values are the same, which makes sense because our equation is y equals x. They equal each other. Okay, just a quick note to say we have a positively graphed line because we have a positive slope. Okay, let's take a look at number 2. So notice this one, y is not by itself. So the first thing we have to do is get y by itself, put it into slope-intercept form. We divide by 2, and we get 4x divided by 2 is 2x. So, like we said, our y-intercept over here is plus nothing, right? Plus 0. So when x is 0, y is 0 again. Because, quick reminder, right? This point should be our y-intercept, which is 0 and b, whatever that number is after the mx. Okay, next step, we want to choose points that are around 0 for x. So we have -1, -2, 1, and 2. We're going to do this one more time here. When y equals 2x is our equation, just to show how does the calculator get this information. So we have y equals 2. Instead of x, we're going to plug in -1 and do the math. So that's 2 times -1 is -2. So when x is -1, y is -2. We have y equals 2x. This time we're plugging in y equals 2. For x, we're going to plug in -2 this time. And that means we get y equals 2 times -2 is -4. So when x is -2, y is -4. All right, let's do it for the other two. We have y equals 2x. When we plug in, this time we're going to plug in 1 for x. 2 times 1 is 2. And then one more time here, y equals 2x. We're going to plug in 2 this time. We get y equals 4. So those are the points that we are going to graph. But again, let's practice and plug it in to the calculator. So we go back to our calculators. We go back to y equals. We are done with that last equation, so we clear it out and we type in our new equation. Our new equation is y equals 2x. Then we want to see our table of values, table of coordinates. We hit second graph. We want to find and highlight where x is 0 because that's our y-intercept. And as you can see, we were correct, 0, 0. Then at -1, we have -2. Then at -2, our y value is -4. So just like what we have, same thing with 1 and 2, 2 and 4. Okay, so let's take a look. What does our graph look like? Very similar to the one before. Let's graph it and then we'll talk about it. So 0, 0, then we have -1, -2, -2, -4, +2, or sorry, +1, +2, +2, +4. Use your student ID unless you have a ruler with you. Could have done better. It's tough to graph or draw with a ruler on these Chromebook screens. So we have a very similar looking graph to the one before. Right? Here's problem 1. Here's problem 2. What is the relationship between the x and y values? So this time we have the y values are 2 times the x values. And why is that? Well, because our slope is different this time. This time, our slope is 2, whereas last time, there was nothing in front of x, which means our slope is 1. When we have a bigger slope, the line gets steeper. So the line was 1, the slope was 1. It wasn't flat, but it wasn't as steep as a slope of 2. Okay, let's go on to number 3. All right, let's go ahead. This is not in slope-intercept form, so we have to do that. We have to get y by itself, so we have to get rid of that 12 by adding it. 3y equals 3x plus 12. Remember, we cannot add 3x and 12 because they're not like terms, and we always put the mx first. Then we need to divide each term by 3 to get y by itself, and 3 over 3 is 1x plus 4. All right, so we learned how to use our calculators. Let's go ahead and do that this time. But first, we're going to mark our y-intercept. Our x value is always 0. And this number right here represents our y value for that coordinate. It's 0, 4 for that coordinate. This is our b, or our y-intercept, our y value for our y-intercept. Okay, let's go to our calculator. Go back to y equals, clear it out, and now we're going to enter this equation, which is just x plus 4. Hit second, hit graph, and we take a look. Our y-intercept is 0, 4. Then we have -1, 3, -2, 2. We go to the other side, 1, 5, and 2, 6. So let's go back and make sure we write that down. We have -1, 3, -2, 2, 1, 5, and 2, 6. Now let's just get a quick idea of what this graph should look like. So it's a little bit flatter than number 2, but it's still a positive slope. But notice that it's shifted in where it's located on the graph. So let's graph it and then we'll talk about it. So 0, 4, we go over 0, up 4. We go left 1, up 3. We go left 2, up 2. Right 1, up 5. Right 2, up 6. Take your straight edge, student ID, and let's draw our line. That was better. Okay, so let's talk about it. Where does the line cross the y-axis? Why do you think this happens? So the line crosses the y-axis higher on the graph. Specifically, it crosses at 0, 4. And that's because b equals 4, right? For our y equals mx plus b, that's our b. Okay? Awesome. Let's go to the next one. Actually, let's have you try 4 on your own. We'll come back and then we'll talk about it. See you in a few minutes. All right, welcome back. So let's take a look. My equation is y equals negative 1x plus 5. So our y-intercept is 0, 5 because that's our b in the y equals mx plus b slope-intercept form. And if we go to our calculator and enter our information correctly, we should get these matching coordinates just as I have here. Now, the question, compared to the previous 3 examples, what happened to the direction of the line? What caused this change? So if you notice, the direction of the line is going from left to right. It's heading down to the right. So the line is heading down to the right. And why did this happen? Because our slope is negative 1. If I can highlight that a little bit better for y'all. This number in front of x is our slope. And when our slope is negative, it will head down to the right. So this line is heading down to the right because m is negative. Okay, let's go ahead on to number 5. A little foreshadowing says, only select integers for the table. So we're going to see what that means in a second. But first, we need to make sure this is in slope-intercept form, which means we need to get y by itself. So we add 2x to both sides. And we get 2x minus 12. Notice that's a negative 12 there. Then we divide everything by 4. And we get y equals 2 over 4, simplifies to 1/2 x, and then minus 3. So our y-intercept, I can't stress this enough, always has 0 for x, and then whatever our b is, which in this case is negative 3. Okay, let's plug this into our calculator, and then let's see what our other table values will be. So we're on y equals, we click alpha, y equals, enter. Remember, this allows us to type a fraction in, and our fraction is 1/2. Make sure you click to the right, and then x, and then we have minus 3. We go second graph, and here's our table of values. So right here is our y-intercept, 0, negative 3. Now if you notice, if we go up to negative 1 for x, it gives us a fraction for y. We don't want fractions because to graph fractions by hand is very difficult to be accurate. So we're searching for integers. So if we go up to negative 2, we have negative 4 for y. So we have negative 2, negative 4. We want those whole numbers because those are much easier to graph. If we go up to negative 3, we see we are not given an integer or a whole number. We go up to negative 4, we get 1. Negative 5. Negative 4. Negative 5. Let's go the other way now. We have x is 0. We know 1 doesn't work for us, but 2 does. 2 gives us negative 2. 2 gives us negative 2. And then 3 doesn't work, but 4 does. 4 gives us negative 1. Okay, let's go ahead and graph it. 0, negative 3 is our first coordinate. Then we go negative 2, negative 4. And then we go negative 4, negative 5. Oof, hold on, I messed that up. Negative 2, negative 4. I went negative 1. Then we go negative 4. And then we go to negative 5. Then we go over 2, down 2, 2, negative 2. Over 4, down 1. Grab your student IDs. And we're going to graph. Not bad. Okay, so let's talk about this. Well, actually, let's double check. If we click graph on our calculator, we notice that we get a very similar picture. So that's a way for us to confirm that we graphed it correctly, which it looks like we did. Now let's talk about this. It says, how could you use your equation to figure out the x values to put on, into the table? So our x values here. Well, if we look at our equation, our slope is 1 over 2. And each of our x values are multiples of 2, right? So we're looking for negative 2, right? Negative 2 and 2, and negative 4 and 2. 2 goes into 2, 2 goes into 4. So we're looking for multiples of our denominator. So that would be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and so on. And then the negative as well. So we're going to say if the slope is a fraction, we can use multiples of the denominator. Okay, so if it was a 3, we would use 3, 6, 9, 12, and so forth. It was 4, 4, 8, 12, and so forth. Okay, last part of our notes. Using what you know about the relationship between an equation and a graph, write the coordinate where the line will cross the y-axis, which is our y-intercept. So remember, it's 0, comma, b. And whether the graphed line would go up or down, positive or negative. So if we look at this, y equals mx plus b. So our y-intercept is this b term, which is always 0 for x and 7 for our y value. And then up or down. Well, if our slope is positive, which it's a positive 1, then it will go up to the right. Next one, our y-intercept. Y equals mx plus b. This time, our y-intercept is negative 6. Always 0 for x, and then negative 6 for y. Then our slope this time is a negative 3. So because it's negative, it is going to be headed down. Our last example, we have 4 for our y-intercept, 0, comma 4. And our slope is positive 1/3. Even though it's a fraction, it doesn't matter, it's a fraction, it's still positive, and therefore it will go up. What x values would we choose when creating a table for equation number 3? So in equation number 3, y equals 1/3 x plus 4. So remember, our x values we're choosing based off of the denominator of our slope. So because our slope is 1/3, we want multiples of 3. So our y-intercept would be 0, and we would want two values smaller than 0, and we want multiples of 3. So we go -3, -6, and then we would want two values bigger than 0, which would be multiples of 3 again, so 3 and 6. So then those would be our x values chosen. Awesome. Very good job today. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace out.